Intel is not Facebook, and you like Intel.
Well, but one of the reasons I like Intel is because of Facebook. So we'll segue a little bit into that.
You're killing me. Go ahead.
It's interesting. You can talk about Facebook, or you can talk about people that are providing the capability so that Facebook can do what it does.
The stuff.
The stuff that does what it does. So, some of the product cycles that I like in semiconductors, we talk about this move to the cloud. Well, what does that really mean? It means that we're putting an awful lot of intelligence someplace else. We spent the last 20 years putting intelligence on everybody's desktop. Now we're re-centralizing computing, except we have called it by a sexy name. We call it cloud computing, and Intel is a huge
That's brilliant. I like that. Tanya, banner that. The cloud is re-centralizing. That's a great concept. That's all we're doing.
Well,
we're going back to Tom Watson.
That's exactly right. And we're going back to the days when you would almost work on a dumb terminal. Now, obviously, there's a lot more intelligence than just the dumb terminals. And those trends are actually kind of mixed for Intel. But what's happening right now is we still have all this power on our desktops. We still have very powerful laptops and ultrabooks that are coming out. Plus, you're putting a lot more servers in the cloud so we can do computing offline.
Let's look at the chart here. Invest in Intel. And I bring this up. I do not own Intel. I'm a small shareholder of IBM. And you can see the move upward in Intel. Is your enthusiasm here like that Palmisano moment of 6 or 7 or 8 years ago? Is there a sea change shift at the way they do business at Intel or within your semiconductor space?
We've been seeing a change in Intel over the course of the last couple of years. And, interestingly, Intel stock has outperformed the group over, year to date, 12 months, kind of all the meaningful, measurable time periods. And it's been because expectations have been very low, because expectations have been low around shipments of personal computers. But people have missed this trend towards folks like Facebook, like Google, like Amazon, building their own data centers. And that's a place where performance is absolutely key. Whereas, with laptops, price is a lot more of a factor. Right now, Facebook needs performance, and Intel is one of the beneficiaries of that.
Okay, let's look at this chart. And this is IBM to Intel. I like doing these. It's too much information. And it's, keep talking, David, the market's moving up. 2 blue chips, 1 result. Okay, so it's just IBM to Intel, and it shows that decade-long move as IBM moved to services. Is Intel the same company we knew 5 years ago or 10 years ago, or is it a whole new beast?
No, Intel's very much the same company, and the story with Intel now is it's pressing its advantages. For example, if you look at Qualcomm recently, which is another stock that I like, they talked about their revenue being limited because of limited capacity at its foundry partner. So Qualcomm doesn't manufacture its own chips. It uses Fabless, it uses Taiwan Semiconductor and other foundries to manufacture chips. They talked about revenue being limited because TSMC didn't have enough capacity. Intel controls its own manufacturing. That's always been the way it's been. But what you're seeing now is Intel pressing its advantages. It's pressing its advantages in manufacturing. It's pressing its advantages in technologies. Its competitor, AMD, Advanced Micro Devices, falls behind. So it's the same Intel, sort of writ large.
Am I too late to be on it?
I don't think so. I think there's still time.
I want to go to this rewind. Earlier this morning, on Bloomberg Surveillance, what a great interview with Jonathan Golub here at Bloomberg Radio Plus. I asked Mr. Golub exactly how big is Apple right now?
Apple is larger than the entire utility sector, the entire telecom sector, and the entire materials sector. Not together, but separately. So you almost need to look at it as an industry as compared to a company.
What have we wrought? Apple bigger than these 3 sectors.
He's exactly right. Apple is an industry. When I talk to folks in the semiconductor supply chain, in the component supply chain, if you're supplying into Apple, you're very happy. If you're supplying into Samsung phones as well, that's the other part of that duopoly there, you're very happy. If you're supplying into anybody else, you're not so happy.
Who supplies to Apple?
Who supplies to Apple?
I mean, is Intel?
A lot of people. Well, Intel supplies into the PCs to Apple because, again, very performance driven.
Yes.
So, but on the chip side, Apple makes its own applications processors, and so this is one of the very important things that Apple has done. Is Apple sort of tries to control that ecosystem.
But within this, does Intel go visit Apple in Cupertino?
Absolutely.
Or does Apple go visit Intel?
Oh, Intel goes to visit Apple, I am sure.
It's sort of like, we all talk about Walmart in Bentonville, Arkansas.
Yeah.
Everybody goes down there and, well, we're here.
Yeah.
Do they have little rooms with doors in Cupertino?
I am pretty sure that Intel goes to Apple, and again, Apple is sort of the performance benchmark. Look at Ultrabooks. Ultrabooks are sort of copies of Mac Air. And Apple is the one that sets the trend. Apple is the one that set the trend with the tablets. Apple had the first real smartphone. So Apple is setting the performance bar, and everybody's going to them, trying to get into that, so that as everybody else starts to copy it, they can equal that performance.
I'm old enough to remember the big silicon tubes, and they cut the wafers and all
That's
that.
what they still do.
They still do that.
They still do that.
Who's the leader in the technology? Is it a national ownership of technology? Is it a company that's leading the way? And
well, I mean,
that kind of research?
In technology, in pure research, it's interesting. You still have folks like IBM who are terrible at manufacturing chips, but do very good research. Intel is very much on the leading edge of the technology and the manufacturing, and that's obviously one of their strengths. Samsung does a lot of good basic research with their semiconductor division. And again, it's interesting, you talk about who's a supplier to Apple. Samsung is a supplier to Apple on the chip side, and there's obviously there's this co-competition there going on.
Which corporate management uses cash flow as the beacon? Which is the one that genuinely applies the productive theories of cash flow for their shareholders?
Well, I think all of the large semiconductor companies do. You look at Qualcomm. Qualcomm has really focused on generating cash flow, and they have huge free cash flow because of the royalty stream. Every time anybody buys an advanced phone, Qualcomm basically brings the register.
A check.
Absolutely. So Qualcomm generates a lot of free cash flow because of that, and they're trying to apply it not just to return to shareholders in form of a dividend share buyback, but also in terms of more R&D.